Well, good evening, everyone. Meteorologist Michael Wilhite here with Southern Indiana Weather. I want to bring you a forecast update. Two potential storms on our way. The first one is knocking on our doorsteps now. There's the snow moving in. It's 7:24 Eastern time here as I'm recording this. There's the snow laying down some decent accumulations to our west. That moves in through the overnight hours. And, of course, we get another one that will come in on Thursday night and last through Friday. We'll talk about that a little bit later on here in the video, but let's deal with this first system first. There it is. It doesn't look overly impressive yet, but it's strengthening more. We'll see radar start to fill in more here with snow as the night goes on. Let's talk about what we can expect. First off, winter weather advisory out for most of the area now. Winter storm warnings now for our southwest counties. Pike, Gibson, Posey, Vanderburgh, Warwick, and Spencer counties underneath of the warning here. Winter weather advisories out here from Dubois, Perry, and Crawford, and on points to the north and east. Knox, Davies, Martin up here. All of these counties, winter weather advisory. What's the difference between the two? When the National Weather Service issues these, the difference is criteria. Winter storm warnings is more than 4 inches possible. Winter weather advisory less than 4 inches possible when dealing with snow. So that's kind of the way they do. You can see the biggest snow accumulations look to stay down in Kentucky from the way things look right now. That's not to say ours will be insignificant. A good fair amount of snow at least still will fall in Indiana, and of course that will make travel problems for us tomorrow morning. Let's time it out here on Future Radar. Let's look at the HRRR model, the HRRR, High Res Rapid Refresh. And there it goes for you. You can see the snow moving in from the west. It's knocking on our doorsteps here by about 11 o'clock here, starting to move into the Indiana area. By the time midnight rolls around, it's already in. It overtakes the area. Here we are about 3 in the morning. It is snowing all across the area now. And then that'll start to move out of the way, and we start to get it here. Southwest Indiana cleared, according to this, by maybe about 7 a.m. or so, and then we start to move off. Now, another future radar that we can use is the high-res NAM. It's a little bit lower resolution than what the HRRR model is, but nonetheless, we'll put it in motion just to give you a different idea here. Ignore the greens. Sometimes this future radar has a problem with its color tables, but it's all snow. There's no rain out of this whatsoever. There it is. Those first waves move into the band around midnight, 1 a.m., something like that. Snow's fairly heavy at times overnight. And notice here, though, the bands really don't start to move out until southwest Indiana, not clear here for until about 8, so it's about an hour difference here. Bottom line is early tomorrow morning, by mid-morning, most of the area will be clear. Now, how much can we expect? Here's what my Futurecast is calling for. This is my forecast predictions. 2 to 4 inches of snow here for Evansville, Jasper, Vincennes, Louisville area, anything here in the red shading. So this would include, Floyd and Harrison counties, Washington here into Orange County, Davies, Martin, and Knox, and then kind of points down here towards southwest Indiana. 1 to 3 inches in general for the rest of you guys as you head a little bit more towards the north. As you go further away, it's going to be probably closer to that 1 inch accumulation, unless this takes a sudden shift to the north that the models are not proclaiming. There actually could be some 5, even 6 inch totals down in Kentucky, but that would be sort of off the map. Locally, higher totals certainly possible with this, but this just gives you a general range to expect tonight. Not a huge snowstorm for us tonight, folks, but nonetheless, 2 to 4 inches could be very disruptive for travel, especially considering it's still snowing by the time you got rush hour going on tomorrow morning. Road crews are going to have a problem cleaning it off in time to get to work on clear roads. So just slow down. There could be there could very likely be a lot of accidents tomorrow. All right, let's turn our attention now very quickly to what's coming up on Friday. Thursday night, we got another system that moves in, and here's what the Weather Prediction Center is showing here as far as probabilities. Moderate risk here in the green of at least 4 inches of snow across our area. Let me just sort of zoom in on this, and maybe you can kind of see it a little bit better. Zoom out. Here we go. All right, so moderate amounts in the green here, slight here in the blue. That's for 4 inches of snow. Notice a high risk of at least 4 inches here over towards West Virginia, part of the mountains over here. Let's take it up a notch. What about 8 inches of snow? 8 inches of snow, even the slight risk of 8 inches of snow coming in here to a small chunk of southern Indiana as well, moderates to our east, and the slight risk of 12 inches of snow, a foot well off to our east there. But again, the potential there is that it could be a pretty big snowstorm. Let me show you why. Here's what the NAM future radar is showing for this point. We'll start off by overnight tonight. There's our system that will move in tonight. As I put this into motion, that system moves off, but watch what develops here down to our south. You've got another system moving in, and it starts off as rain down for points in Tennessee, but it'll very quickly, again, you notice some of those problems, but here's your freezing line right here. Here's your 32. This is going to start falling as snow, and as it does, heavy snow looks like it could potentially overtake our area for many hours. In fact, here we are into Friday night at 7 p.m., and it's still heavy snow around the area. And as far as the model sees out to 84 hours, snow on that for at least a chunk of southern Indiana. Now, there's some differences in that you need to notice. The models are going to say right now different things about it. The NAM, well, this is the GFS. Let me show you that first. Let me show you the NAM first. The NAM here has the low positioned here at the early overnight hours here. This would be about 1 a.m. on Friday. It has the low for this positioned down here over Mississippi. Watch how this goes. As you advance on here, heavy snow starts to break out here, and you've got the low centered here now over Nashville, and it's actually, you see the low on this one, it's going to sort of take a cut through Indiana. What it's eventually going to do is the low will start to transfer its energy once it reaches the Appalachian Mountains. It's going to start to transfer its energy over to the coast and cause a pretty hefty blizzard for the East Coast, but not before it does us some serious problems at the time too. And there's the snow with that. But I want you to notice this. Let me just back off here. So here's that low cutting through this far north. Watch what it does with the GFS. Okay. So here's the GFS's idea, and notice this. It does not take the low that direction. It gives a little bit of snow to us, but the precip shield can't go far up. It's not as heavy, and it sort of cuts the low in a different fashion. So if I just put on something here, they both start out the low down here, but the NAM sort of cuts the low something up like this before it transfers its energy to the coast. The GFS, on the other hand, sort of cuts the low like this before it stops in the mountains and transfers its energy to the coast. The difference in those two are major because that means the difference between heavy snow and what could be a mega snowstorm for us in the area. Let me show you that. If the NAM solution is right, here is what we could be expecting. Absolutely obscene snow totals. And so you may see these floating around on social media. I want to cover it. This is not my forecast. I'm not saying that we're going to get 18 inches of snow here in Louisville and almost 17 in Evansville. I'm just using this for illustrative purposes. This is, if the NAM is right, it's going to be an epic snowstorm around here. But that's not the only model we use. I showed you the differences in tracks. Look at the GFS, folks. The GFS much lighter on snow totals. The track is a little bit further to the south, so look at this. Only 2.5 inches here in Evansville versus the NAM's 16.7 inches. That is a huge difference in the modeling right now. So I know many of you are saying, well, can you give us some ideas on snow totals for Friday? No, I can't, because frankly, it's just out completely in the air right now. Storm is actually going to be moving on to the coast, the west coast tonight, getting into our upper air networks. That'll allow it to be better sampled, so hopefully tomorrow we'll start to dial in a little bit more on these specifics. But I don't have the Euro pulled up here. The Euro looks very similar to the GFS. I will say the Euro sucked all winter long. I've not been overly impressed with it for us around here. Everybody says Euro is the king of models. It has not been this year. It's been terrible as far as winter storms have been concerned. The NAM showing this, I just want to show you as well, the Canadian model lining up fairly well with that NAM with a more northerly track to the low, resulting in heavier snow for us. It's not quite as obscene on its totals, though. Only about 7 inches for Louisville, about 8, or Evansville, excuse me, about 8 inches for Louisville here. Even a good 6 or 7 inches plus here up around the Cincinnati area. And that lines up fairly well with what the NAM's positioning does, but the NAM is much more heavy on its snow totals. Now, which one is going to be right at this point in time, folks? It's just too early to tell. But here's what I can tell you. It's going to depend exactly on how that track of the low does do. So, again, that low moves in. Does it move like this? Does it move like this? Heavy snow, I do think, is likely for Kentucky. The question is, how far north can that heavy snow go? It is possible for us, basically south of I-70 here in Indiana, all of southern Indiana at risk for some heavy snow, but not in the likely stage yet. Hopefully tomorrow we'll start to be able to dial in on that. Even in some of these modelings that show the lighter snow totals, we get some snow moving in, but I also want you to notice how sharp of a cutoff. With the GFS, you go from near 3 inches towards the Ohio River here around the Evansville area, but you've got some 6 inches showing up here in Perry County. Washington, Indiana, around Daviess County, a tenth of an inch. Absolutely nothing the further north you go from that. That's a pretty drastic cutoff. You even see that pretty sharp cutoff here from the NAM as well. You go from near 17 inches in Evansville to about 5 inches up in Washington. That's a sharp cutoff, and then notice how it just sharply cuts off to next to nothing after that. Once it shuts off, it shuts off. So it's going to be a very difficult system to forecast, folks. And again, it's going to be, does it go into Kentucky? Does it stay down in Tennessee before it transfers its energy? We're not going to know that really until tomorrow evening, probably, before we can start to dial in on those totals. Forecasting nightmare, to say the least. Let's take it one system at a time. We got this system to come through tonight, and that'll lay down some snow. Hopefully by tomorrow, though, once this system's out of the way, we'll be able to deal with the next system. The models will start to improve, hopefully tomorrow. Once that's out, the system gets fully sampled into our upper air network. Just hopefully tomorrow's modeling will start to be a little bit better. Let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that we can converge on a solution, because right now, well, they're just all over the place for Friday. So just know this right now, I wouldn't rush the grocery stores yet. I wouldn't say it's going to be Snowmageddon yet. I do think somebody's going to get some pretty heavy snow totals out of that, but we can't exactly say, is it going to include southern Indiana in those totals, or is it going to remain more in southern Kentucky, like what the GFS and Euro are saying? We'll have to see. Hopefully tomorrow we'll know a little bit more. All right, folks, that is it for this update. Snow is on the way. Use caution tomorrow morning as you are traveling out there on the roads if you have to go to work. I'm meteorologist Michael Wilhite. Thanks for watching, folks. More of these to come. Stay tuned.